Lake Beresford, the town of Beresford. Most people don't realize that was a town, but it was. We'll see some more of it. This is Captain Andrew Henderson Alexander, who was the first settler, on the east shore of Lake Beresford. And this is his house that he built. It's still standing. It was built about 1883, which makes it one of the earlier houses in Volusia County. And this is one of Miss Alexander. I guess it's either his wife or his daughter, I'm not sure which, in front of the Alexander home in their automobile. You see, it looks like a Model T. Whatever it is, it was a fine automobile back in that day. This is a how it looked in later years. It's all whitewashed, painted white. It's a beautiful house, still is for that matter. And it was surrounded by orange groves. They're not today because they all froze out in 1985. Now, one of the things that feeds that lake is up on the north end is what we call Cabbage Slough. You'll pass over it when you go across on the old road coming around from the depot. You'll pass over it there and you'll see a little creek running off to your left. And it drains a lot of that country up into going up towards the new highway and beyond it up in there. The water drains down into Lake Beresford. One of the things that feeds that lake and makes it a lake. This is what the country looked like back then. Look at the pine trees. This country was covered in pine trees. Look at the land and realize there were no oak trees here. All it is today is oak trees. But as I said before, fire burning through here kept the oak trees killed down, so nothing lived but the big pine trees. And they were beautiful. And there was thousands of acres of it, no more. Used to build houses with all over the world, not just here. This is Miss Rowena Dean with her brother and her boyfriend and his girlfriend. They're out at Lake Beresford, 1880s. And you can see the dock over right in front of the oxen's head. Now women liked the oxen because they didn't shy and run from a loud noise like a mule or horse would. And they also used the two-wheel carts because they got along better than this old sand that we have here. You remember back then there weren't any paved roads, it was just dirt. In the dry weather, they were hard to get around in. There was a little church, there's a cemetery out there, not too far from the lake up on Beresford Road going east. On the right-hand side is I guess the earliest cemetery we had in this area. And there used to be a little church there right by it. The church has long since been gone. But this is the Campbell family and the Myers family coming out of Sunday school. And left to right is Leslie Call, Irene Juanita, Florence Lila, and Emma Leona, children of Lawrence Mason Campbell and Julia Call Campbell. They're not pictured in this picture. And then there's Ida, Henry, Ethel, and a boy who's unknown, and Bert Myers. Lady in the hat is a Sunday school teacher, name unknown, in front of the church on April 3rd, 1915. Now Henry Myers was married my oldest sister. And Miss Campbell was my present wife's mother. This is the city of Jacksonville at the Beresford docks in the 1890s. You can always tell the city of Jacksonville and the Frederick DeBerry because up on the cabin where the pilot's house, there was an eagle, big old metal eagle up on top of that. And this is the first store. It's operated by Benjamin Colleran and David Felt. This store will move into DeLand as DeLand grew. And This is the Beresford post office and a little old store that was later in the 1900s. And this is Mr. Kitty. He was at the Beresford store. And this is, Mr. Kitty was there sometime in the 20s, I think, and not. And this is the Ladies' Aid Society, standing on the porch there. Beresford had several houses right in that area there. And this is the Alexander docks at Lake Beresford and the steamer Everglades at the dock there. Notice the horse and buggies there. And the old warehouse over on the left is, this is all gone now. We'll see some more pictures of it. And that's the Chattahoochee dock. There were so many steamboats on the St. Johns River in the 1870s and 80s, which was the heyday of the steamboats, that you could stand on the deck, they said, and look fore or aft of you anywhere on the river and you'll see another steamboat. But when the railroad came through in 1886, the steamboat traffic dwindled down till it was gone in the early 1930s. There's a fellow sitting out on the dock with a little couple of kids. They're fishing there. I used to walk out there when I was a kid or ride my bicycle out there and fish off that dock. Today you'd worry about the kid, something happening to them if they went out there, but they didn't worry about it. They just said, go ahead. Daddy said I had enough sense to get back home. This is the Osceola. This was one of the bigger steamboats and the last one to run on the St. Johns River, the last of the paddle wheel steamers. It operated as a passenger boat from 1933, and from 33 to 39 it was a freight boat owned by some people, farmers in Sanford, to haul freight back and forth for them. And they finally pulled it up on the shore down at Lake Monroe, and it rotted away there. The city of Jacksonville. This is a fine boat, the first boat on the river to have electric lights on it. And, this boat was bought by the American Legion, I think it was, up in Jacksonville when it ceased to run in the late 20s, and they used it as a meeting place. They had a dining room on them, dance floor, and all. They used it up until the Second World War, and they had to move it to make way for some boat building place there. They were going to build Liberty boats, and it just fell apart when they tried to move it. And there it is leaving the dock at Jacksonville. Notice again the eagle up on top. They built a big pavilion on the lake out there on the Beresford side, just to the north of the freight dock. And we'll see more pictures of it. And this is a recreation place, as well as a place to store boats underneath it. And there it is after it's finished. You see the people standing up in the top. This is they'd have boat races and all out there. And the people would gather up on top there so they could see the races out on the lake. And they had dances up there. It was a fine recreation place. There's some more pictures of it. Now this was torn down when the Navy, when the American Boat Works Machinery Company, the Boat Works we called it, came in to start building tugboats, and first built barges and then tugboats. And they tore this whole building down, what was left of it at that time. There's the Lake Beresford Docks and Pavilion. This postcard had St. Francis postmark on it. The St. Francis Post Office. This is Lake Beresford Docks and Pavilion. As you can see, what I said, where the location was. And the lady over on the right there has got a box camera, and she's taking a picture of the docks down there. There's the Frederick de Berry leaving the dock, and you can see the eagle up on top of it. Spec County, Shirley Storm Cruise, the old packing house in Lake Beresford, 1950. Spec Martin was Ford dealer here, and he's also the fire chief at Deerfoot, while some time, length of time. And the cruises was part of the cruise family that their brother owned the bicycle place at the land. I think there was 4 girls and 1 boy. And Cliff Rhodey lived out there. This is he's sitting on this old alligator. Of course, the alligator dead. Otherwise he wouldn't be sitting on it. Notice the hyacinth packed in between the pavilion and the docks. This is one of the boats that came up there. It's a popular place in this day. There's the dock, and back in the back there you see the packing house that we'll see more of. This is the pavilion. These are different time periods. Notice the old boat over in the back. That boat is sunk. There's a question about the name of the boat. We'll see some more of it. It's hard. I can't make the name of the boat. I was up on the captain's, where the captain's place was, but I can't make the name out on it. There's the boat again. You can see the other end of the boat. And there's a question of whether it was called the Iroquois or whether it was the Iroquois or the Plant. Someone said it was the Plant, someone says it's the Iroquois. So take your choice. Anyhow, it's a boat sunk there. And when they built the tugboats out there, they tore that thing and tore it up and got it out of there. There's a picture of the thing. Of course, you can tell the water isn't very deep because it's sitting on the bottom. These steamboats usually drew about 6 foot of water. They were flat bottomed so that they didn't take much water. Because in the beginning they had to get across the sandbar at Lake George before they built the jetties there. And sometime in real low water, even at 6 foot, they couldn't go across that bar. So that's why they dug it out in 1884 and put a channel through there. These are just other pictures of the pavilion. In the 1930s, it was a wonderful place out there as far as entertainment was concerned. And you see another dock over beyond it over there. We'll see some more of it in a minute. Here's the other place you looked at there, the docks and the pavilion. This is looking at it from across the lake. This is looking up towards Beresford Road from the pavilion. And these were the Kersey docks. They were built by a man by the name of Kersey, and he sold it later to a fellow by the name of Fournier. Mr. Fournier had 2 sons, and they collected a lot of the Indian artifacts that they could find on the river. I don't know what become of them because I don't think they're still living. Henry Fournier, look at that old dock going out there. My dad used to go out there and get a boat for it to go fishing in, and I was scared to death to walk down that dock there because I knew I was going to fall in through the thing and drown under there. So they were just old boards laying on things, wasn't nailed down or nothing, just laid there. One got rocked and threw it away and got another one laid there. And these are boat places up on the right there where people kept their boats. And Mr. Fournier lived out there on the house there. There's some more pictures of his docks. We went out there one morning, Dad and I, on Sunday morning. We got a boat and went out there to try to catch some shiners. My mother loved to fish. And he wanted to bring her back that afternoon, let her troll the shiner and see if she'd catch a bass. We fished out there for 2 hours and caught 2 shiners. One of them was about 10 inches long and big enough to eat. And the other one was about 6 inches long, small. We came back that afternoon, Mom put the little one on, and caught about a 5-pound bass right off the bat. The big one Daddy put on, so well, we probably won't nothing hit him, so big. We trolled all the way around to on the east side of the lake there, around past Deerfoot. And my mother said, "Oh, I'm hung up." Dad said, "You hung up?" She said, "Yeah." She was bending the rod, couldn't move it. She gave it to Daddy. He started pulling it and said, "You got a fish." And he gave it back to her and she wrestled that fish till she gave out. And then Daddy took it and got it in and weighed over 12 pounds. That one was really tickled. That was the biggest fish she ever caught. This is the Nellie Bly. It's the inboard motorboat. Wasn't very many of them out there in that early time. And this is the Hyacinth. It was on the river there. This was that one that came out of St. Francis. And there it is again at the dock there. Captain Harris, the son of the man that founded St. Francis, this was his boat. And he delivered mail up and down the river with this. And the Lucille boat, I don't know who owned it, there at Fournier's dock. Just a postcard of the docks there. And one of the boats called the Heron's Nest. I guess it was a bigger boat. This is the first freight truck that worked out of there. The railroad was already there. The bulk of the shipping was still done by steamer for a while. And this was the first truck used to haul freight to the wharf. Before the truck was acquired, flatbed wagons with wheels similar to those on railroad sidecars were used on the loading ramps. This old truck is chain driven. There's the docks and the packing house in the back in the 30s. And this is Mr. Hardin's a boat. He's pulling a raft of logs across the lake. Men standing back on the raft. This is Mr. Hatch and Freddie Potvin. They're on that shell barge. They haul that shell from Beresford, from the docks at Hontoon, up to Beresford to put on trucks and haul in, put them on the streets. And this is what the Fournier boys used to look through this stuff looking for Indian artifacts. Because this is actually, these middens are an Indian garbage dump. It's because they lived mostly off of the snails to make a real good soup out of it, rich soup. And that was one of their main source of food, which kept piling snails up over hundreds of years and made these large mounds. There's the pavilion again. And this is the depot there at Beresford. It's right across the road from the old boat works there. Not across the railroad track, the old boat work. In fact, you had to go across that thing to get into the boat work. Very dangerous crossing, but I don't ever remember anybody being hit there by a car being hit there. And they did have a train wreck there. There's a train coming through, and there's Mr. James, postmaster, down there waiting to pick his mail up. He had an arm out there that held a mail bag, and then had a hook that snatched that thing as it went by. And they'd throw the other bag off that had mail for it. Sometimes that bag would break and scatter letters everywhere. You had to pick them all up. And this is the old boat docks. They're going away, rotting away, and they're now completely gone. The old building there in about 1993 fell over. Now the road in the beginning was not called Beresford Road, it was called Palatka Avenue. And this is laid out in a town with roads on it. And I guess they sold lots on the thing, or somebody bought them. But this is a store over on the right. And then they're getting good looking from and that's an Iriner, the boat there. This is some of the fancier boats that's on the river. And there's some of the boats racing on the river. That's what the people stood up on the stand telling them pavilion and watch those races out there. And there's a tourist barge. They didn't have boats to haul them on in. They'd put them on in barges and tow them around the lake there. So they could see that these were fair weather boats. You didn't go out on rainy weather with these things. And there's some of the boats on the lake there. You see some in the background. You also see a lot of patches of hyacinths, so they're not boats. And this is a houseboat that was on the lake there. Just seen pictures, just I don't know what that top was for. The shit didn't offer no shade, but I don't know what it was on there for. There's another one of the nice boats that came up the docks in the 1950s. This is looking down Pulaski Avenue, the docks in the 1920s. And this is looking at the town of Beresford and up Lake Beresford, and across the peninsula over there you see the St. Johns River. At one time they were going to dig a canal right straight across that river right into the lake. But they decided it wasn't worth it. They'd have to put a bridge across it for people to get out to the end of the thing, so they didn't build it. They didn't dig it. That was when the war was on. They could get those tugboats that were built out a lot easier, they thought, and haul them all the way around the peninsula. There's the Baird brothers. They were very early residents of the area, and we'll see some more about them as we go along. This was their home out on Beresford. And this is their first packing house. They were very big in the citrus business. And there you see the packing house in the lake. That eventually became the part of the Beresford Boat Works, and that's where they did a lot of the welding and prefabricating stuff that was going on the barges, and the tugboats were done in that building. It's still standing there. And this is Alexander and Beard. They formed a partnership, Mr. Alexander and the Beards, and in the orange business. This is it, looked in the 1920s. $1900s. This is a picture of one of their orange crates that's getting ready to go out in advertisement for it. They have some of the oldest grove in the state of Florida at that time. Southern Railway Express building at Beresford. You notice it's made out of palmetto logs. Bell Butler, Rain Haynes, and Daly and Ed Hartub. This didn't stay there too many years. Those palm logs were not the best thing in the world for logs or anything, except to be in water. They last a long time if you put them in water pilings. There's a depot again, 1950. This is a Rudy home. Lake Beresford, it's still there. Notice the chicken. Everybody had chickens. If you want eggs, you had to have chickens. It's too expensive to buy them. That's Mr. Brody in front of his home. One of the kids in the background. And I think that's Jimmy Rody on the bicycle. Not sure, it's one of the boys on the tricycle. That must have been a tough time. You notice you got a stick to push yourself along with, because that sand trying to travel that sand on a tricycle wasn't very easy. Some of the mules they worked the groves with. It says breeding mules, but you didn't breed mules. You had a horse and a donkey made a mule. And this is Cliff Rody picking fruit there in this grove. Now, Mr. Rody lived there for years, Cliff did, and he had a big orchard of grapes in there in later years. He also had a bunch of sand pears, and people would buy those sand pears and make preserves out of them. They made very good preserves. There's Mr. Rody, Cliff Rody, riding, hauling fruit with an unknown person. Packing house. Here he is with Deerfoot Depot. Cliff is getting ready in 1917. He's headed off to World War I. There's some families on the boat dock. Don't know who they are. That's Mrs. Butner, Isaac Stewart, Mary Stewart Howarth, and Mrs. Stewart. Right after the war, the Coast Guard had a little place out there and they went up and down the river servicing those lights on the river, those channel markers on the river. They lived in the land, the two guys did, and they had their boat. They'd go out to the dock there every morning and they'd work those lights, keep them cleaned and burning. This is just a picture of some water hyacinths. They're pretty, they're beautiful blossoms on them. They're sure a nuisance in the water. And up at the north end of the lake, the Tropical Fish Motel at that time, it's still a place there. If you notice, there's no docks there for the boats, they just pulled up the shore. We were working out there one day when it was a power company, and the fellow that owned it, we were talking about the pretty boats out there. It was in the docks then, it had covers over them. He said, yeah, I said, I said, they use them all the time? He said, they use them twice. When they first get them, they come out here every day. If you don't do nothing, just sit around and eat. You might pull it out in the lake, tell them to go swimming or something. But they pull it back in here, and it'd sit there until they finally sold it. And you did just that one time. And just to the south of the Beresford is a place called Deerfoot, Deerfoot Landing. If you go out Highway 17 towards Orange City, you'll come to Deerfoot Road out there. That's where the racetrack, right at the filling station, that service station. And Deerfoot Road turns to the left, right to the right there. You can't go all the way through to the lake, but they used to at one time. This landing and all now is owned by the county. It's part of what's going to be a park. And there's the city of Jacksonville, the dock there at Deerfoot. Here's a bunch of people there. I guess they're picking up passengers or unloading somebody. The building in the back is where they took water. It actually was just sulfur water coming out of the flow well, but they bottled it. If you let it aerate for a while, that gas disappears because it isn't an air thing. It's not part of the water. And they would bottle that water and sell it to Florida East Coast Railroad and to the steamboats. There it tells about the purity of the water in this ad. I don't know how it'd be so pure and have all them minerals in it. And right on south of there was a Stark plantation. This was Lord Beresford's place to begin with, given to him by the King of England, to grow indigo and to cut live oak for the shipbuilding business in England. But when the Indians got real active over on the peninsula, he pulled out of there and left. And while he was gone, the United States took possession of Florida, and they gave it to Stark, claimed possession of it, and they gave it to him. Beresford come back and tried to get it, and they wouldn't give it to him because he had abandoned it. And there's the old picture of the old house that was there. That was probably the first house built, big house built in the state in Volusia County. It was built about 1851, and you can see, or 1854, I'm sorry. And you can see the house, and these are pictures. It was, people just, when they left here and went back to Georgia, Captain Stark did, he had a cavalry he formed during the Civil War, and he took them up and he fought with Lee. And I think him and about two guys are the only ones that came back. And he became a senator, Florida senator, for one term. And then he decided to go back to Georgia, and they abandoned the place as far as the house, but they kept the orange grove and kept it up and used the money off of that for other things. And this was taken in the 60s, these pictures. And kids got in there, and most of the good stuff had been stolen out of the house. And the kids set it afire accidentally, I guess, and it burned it down. There's no sign of it there today. But it was a big house, a very nice home, I'm sure. That's the front of it. Had a beautiful staircase in it, but it was all that was salvaged by people coming out here and just ripping it out and taking it away. This is the fireplace in the house. This is the outhouses in the Grove in the 1850s. This is one of the tenant houses that was on there. I think the former must have lived in it. This was probably the overseer's house that he lived in there when he was working for Mr. Stark. And this is a picture of it in a little later years. It's about gone now, if it's not gone. This is part of the Blue Spring State Park today. This was purchased by the county, I think, and given to the state when the first, I think this is the first thing that the county ever bought. And they gave it to the state of Florida to go with the Blue Spring State Park. What they're ever going to do with it, I don't have any idea. There's some more pictures of that old house. And this right on in towards the lake was this carriage barn. It's overgrown with vines now, but this is where his carriages were parked at. And this is a push pole that was in the barn, in that barn there. The boat couldn't get up to his dock because it was too shallow in that end of the lake. And the boat would have to anchor out away from there, and they would have to take barges and load the fruit on it and then pull them out there with these poles and unload them onto the boat. And these are the slave cups. These were at night when they were getting going to lay down and go to bed. They put these on one ankle and done the other one to something that they couldn't get it off of. And if they was afraid they'd run, they would shackle them with these where they couldn't. All they could do is just barely walk. And this is the road from the house down to the lake. And these two gentlemen here are riding on the road from Beresford to Blue Spring. And I think this was on the east side of the railroad, possibly on the west or maybe, I'm not sure which, but the road ran from here down to the springs. Brought from here, from Beresford down there about through Stark's place. And this is, it's become a thunderstorm that they always knew where these old hollowed out trees was. And they could get up inside of them while it was raining. You might have to run some coons out of it to get you a place to sit. And this is the Volusia Depot. This is where they shipped fruit out by train. Now, the railroad tore all these down back in the 50s. And I was able to salvage this one. They gave me the salvage rights on it. And my house there that I used to live in, some of the flooring and the sills under that house were made from the lumber out of this old depot.